We are going to start Sri Suktam learning from today with Bhagavan's grace and immense blessings. Sri Suktam. There are several Suktam. Suktam means, Su means that is very well, Uktam means that is elaborated or said. When you go listen to someone say something, would you say you sang very well, or you say you sang very well, right? Very well. You say, wow, how beautiful that was. So Suktam means the one that is said so perfectly, that is elaborated so perfectly. Uktam means what is said. Sukta means that is said perfectly, that is said very well. When you say something, it should be said in a way that the person should be eager and anxious to listen more of what you have to say, not wondering when you will stop. 99% of the time there is no substance in what is being said, then the person is going through this and living through this. But when what is said so perfectly, the mind is yearning to listen more of it. For what is being said is not being said through the head. What is being said is said being through the heart. When we listen also, we should listen with the heart and not with the head. 99% of the time we are listening with the head, not listening with the heart. When you are actually listening with the head, it is called hearing. When you are actually hearing through the heart, it is called listening. When you listen, you don't think of what is being said. What you are listening goes directly into the heart without any analysis paralysis. So when the Veda mantras are elaborated by the drashtas, the seers, that are revelations, a suktam is a revelation. It's a revelation about what is so incredible. The essence of some of the Vedas have to be compiled together. When you write a book or when you look at a chapter, sometimes in the main chapter, they won't elaborate certain things. They will put a footnote and see Appendix A, see Appendix B. Why? Because it's not possible to elaborate on certain things in each chapter. Then the book becomes enormous, humongous, isn't it? When certain revelations happened with the mantra drashtas, the great sages and the seers, certain places they just said, see Appendix so and so in the Vedas. And those appendices are called mandalas in the Vedas. Those appendices are these suktams. Rigveda has certain number of appendices, Yajurveda has certain number of appendices. So they are elaborations of the revelations in such a way that the human mind is enticed to listen and to yearn more about certain aspects. There are certain mantras that are absolutely straight, taken right out of the Vedas and are chanted. For example, Sri Rudram. Sri Rudram is not an appendix. Sri Rudram is directly straight out of Yajurveda. Whatever is exactly said in the Veda is what is given. However, Purusha Suktam, Sri Suktam, Bhu Suktam, Nila Suktam, there are so many suktas. Those suktas are appendices of the revelations. One such revelation that is elaborated in the fifth mandala of Rigveda, what's called as Atreya Mandala, and each of them have been taken by certain rishis and they expanded upon it, right? Okay? Just like what a teacher does to illustrate a point, that the teacher will go elaborate from the expression that is in a mathematical form or in a trigonometric form. So many different ways the expression occurs. Expression occurs through biological sciences, sociological sciences, through physics, through chemistry, mathematics. Same thing is elaborated in many ways as expressions. When you actually take forms of mathematical expression and you draw certain lines and shapes and forms and figures, it's called what? What's called? Geometry. And when you take certain expressions and then you elaborate them in the context of formulas and derivations and equations, it's called algebra. Similarly, each of these revelations are expressed as mantras, as tantras, as suktas, as pujas, as different rituals. Each thing is expressed in so many different ways, but the substance is the same thing. At the end of the day, the fundamental learning is the same, but it is expressed in so many different ways so that the human mind will have, and the intellect and the source will have different ways of connecting to it. Similarly, in Bible, there are certain different layers of revelations in the Holy Bible. Some revelations are not elaborated and expanded, and they are for certain level of people whose awareness is limited to certain extent only. For example, if it is said, without believing in Jesus you will go to hell, that is meant for somebody who is at that level of awareness only. And there are certain revelations in the Holy Bible that are not even elaborated even by monks and the greatest of the sages and the seers. They are kept cryptic, they are kept as revelations because Guru teaches not straight but through an indirect path of expression, so that it is up to the student now to understand what the Guru is saying. If it is given straight, then what happens? People will get it at different levels. So these revelations are kept cryptic in the main text and elaborated elsewhere, so that people will now relate it through some form, relate it through some expression. Lot of people think that Purusha Suktam is about male, Sri Suktam is about female. Now this Sri Suktam also, we now think about, some people call it Stri Suktam. It is not Stri Suktam, it is Sri Suktam. Sri Suktam means the one revelation or elaboration, maybe elaboration is a better word than revelation in this case, for Suktam, about that consciousness in which everybody seeks ultimately refuge. And that consciousness in which you take refuge is generally referred to in feminine gender when it is elaborated in these expressions. Now, Sreyate Sarvaha iti Srihi, the one which is auspicious and the ultimate refuge for every single being, that is called Sri. Now I gave the etymological elaboration of the word Sri. Sivayatiti Sivaha, Ramayatiti Ramaha, Dukkena Gatum Shakkate iti Durgaha. Each one of the words that we use have an etymological origin. Etymology means the substance root from which the word has come. Like that, each of these will have several different ways of root meanings based on your own awareness. The one who makes you cry at the end of the pralaya is called Rudra. But Rudra also means the one which is the source of every single substance. Now same thing is said too differently. Depending upon your awareness, you will be able to connect to it. This Sri Sukta, I am giving this elaboration because Sri also is referred to as auspiciousness, serenity, supreme safety. So many different things. But Sri, most of us connect to in one. What is the only way we connect to Lakshmi Devi? Dollar bills only. We have many people, why they are praying to Lakshmi Devi? For what? Money, isn't it? But Lakshmi actually doesn't mean money. Lakshmi, the word Lakshmi has also several different meanings. The one that gives the ultimate goal for your life is Lakshmi. The one that gives the Lakshya to the individual is Lakshmi. Lakshya is goal. Lakshmi is the one that gives that ultimate goal. What is that ultimate goal of each and every individual? What is our ultimate goal? What's the ultimate goal? For any individual, what is the ultimate goal?
Happy living.
Happiness. Okay, what is happiness? What is happiness for you?
Maybe money is happiness.
Money is happiness, yes. What is happiness? What's happiness?
Chocolate.
Huh?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. That answer should come from there, not from you. It's usually girls that love chocolate, you know. Okay, what is happiness? What's happiness?
Getting good grades.
See, for a child that is going to school, getting good grades is happiness. Getting marks but not remarks is happiness, as Swami says. I don't care if you get marks or not, but don't get remarks. That is what Bhagavan says to every student. So, for a child it is. For a little child, what is happiness?
Little child. You said little child?
Yeah. Getting food when needed is happiness. Exactly, yeah. See, what is happiness and what does that happiness do? You say, I'm happy. What does that mean?
Fill some desires. Content.
Content is happiness? Yeah? How many of you, maybe you heard when Amma asked me to talk about bliss when on the second day when there were those celebrities, she was asking me to talk about Satchit Ananda, explain to them what Ananda is, what is happiness. I was explaining about what happiness was. What is happiness? Ultimately, what is happiness?
That which lasts.
The one?
That which lasts and not.
That which is not temporary is a happiness, isn't it? All of these things that you're talking about is temporary. Once you get out of school, then there is no need for getting marks or remarks. Then is that happiness ending there? No. Every stage of life, if you are hungry, you get food, you are happy. If you are poor, you get money, you are happy. If you are, getting what you need at the time of what is required, if that is happiness, then how can that be permanent happiness? Is that what we are talking about as happiness? Is that what really, if ultimate goal is happiness, he said, and if that goal is changing all the time, then you are chasing a goal that is different at different points of time. That means you are never ending chasing some mirage all the time, isn't it? Yes? So what is Sri is that auspiciousness, that happiness. It has to be everlasting, permanent. It shouldn't be changing from your stage of life. It shouldn't be changing based on your social status, your caste, creed, religion, where you come from. It cannot be different goal for different people. Then it is not the ultimate goal. What is that ultimate happiness? What is it? Moksha, what does that mean? Huh?
Being in God's presence.
Realizing God.
Realizing God, okay.
Being in God's presence.
Being in God's presence, yeah. One person asked, when Swami was giving interview to a lot of people from UK, Swami asked, what do you want? And this person said, Swami, I want to merge in you. And the Swami looked at him like this. And then he said, you, me, how? How can you merge that big person in this small person? Yes, ultimately what happiness is, as Bhagavan defines it is, happiness is union with God. What is happiness? Union with God. That is happiness. Then the next question is, what is God? Happiness is God. If happiness is union with God, happiness is that which is not separate from everything else. As long as you are separate from everything else, you are unhappy. Just know that. And I always tell people there are two kinds of people, right? Happy people and married people. Now, the moment you become separate, you will always be unhappy. What is union with God means God is nothing but that consciousness that is generating, organizing and dissolving. G for generation, O for organization, and D for dissolution. That is what is God. That consciousness from which everything is evolving, resolving and dissolving, that is God. Now what is that consciousness? And when you are separate from that aspect of creation, resolution and dissolution, when you separate yourself from that consciousness, then you are unhappy. Union with God means God is not separate from you. Right? That is, now why I am coming to, what is this to do with Sri Suktam? That is the next question. What is this to do with Sri Suktam? You are all wondering about that. I thought Sri Suktam is about praising Mahalakshmi so we get some money. That is the ultimate goal of life. Ultimate goal of life is have so much money that at the end of the day you earn so much money. One guy asked the question, what happens when you earn money? Well, I will be earning so much money that I don't have to think of, okay, you get so much money, what do you do after that? Then he said, well, I will be actually sitting on a beach playing my guitar and enjoying myself. Why do you need money for that? Why do you need money for that? Swami was asked by Professor Kasturi. Professor Kasturi asked Swami, give me some mantra. Every guru in this world is giving mantra after mantra and they will charge money for that. Every guru is sponsoring something to get some money out of something. This even spirituality is marketed in such a way, you do this homa, you will get so much benefit, you better pay $1,000 for it. Then I pay $1,000 for it. Then I have an expectation of what this homa is going to give me. And that expectation is what you are creating through these mantras and tantras and yantras and all that. So Professor Kasturi asked, Swami, give me mantra. Every guru is giving me mantra. Swami said, what do you want after? What do you do after you get the mantra? Then I will be sitting and really focusing on that mantra and praying to that particular deity. Okay, then what happens after that? Well, I will be so close to that God and Goddess and that will be right in front of me. Then he said, even more closer than this? Why do you need mantra? I am right here in front of you. Why do you need that? If your goal to chant the mantra is to be in the presence of God so close, God is right here, so close, why do you need mantra? Instead of paying attention to that consciousness that is around us, we are going wandering like vagabonds and we are trying to go seek happiness somewhere. And this Sri Suktam is telling what that this is expanding and expounding upon. What is that auspiciousness? What is that serenity? What is that absolute consciousness? That absolute consciousness, when it is given certain characteristics, how does it really look like? What does that really mean? That is what this Sri Suktam is elaborating on. Class is over, you can all go. The rest of it is only simply description, and even that description of what we are talking about, we are now channelizing that description in certain ways. It can never ever completely describe it, because the one that can be described is only limited by the power of your word and the power of your thought. If that cannot be described is beyond the word and the power of your thought, yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha, how can anyone be able to completely express it? It can only be experienced. Then you ask the question, why do I need to study all these things then, right? Isn't it? What's the point of, my son used to ask me when he was a kid, what's the point of all this algebra and all that stuff? Will I ever apply this in my life? Why am I, studying all this stuff now? Did you wonder about that any time? Yeah. Why am I studying all this stuff? Will I ever be able to apply all that physics in my life? Critical angle of internal reflection. Critical angle of, how many of you studied critical angle of internal reflection? Yes, yeah. What is critical angle of internal reflection?
In a glass when light hits the glass at that angle, it will reflect back only at that angle. But if it's at some other angle, it will just pass through.
Light has certain properties that when it hits certain object at certain angle, it will refract, diffract and reflect in certain angles where the light is hitting the prism. Critical angle of internal reflection. And that critical angle of internal reflection is described in Sri Rudram. Now you are wondering, what? Critical angle of internal reflection is described in Sri Rudram? Don't worry, I won't put you on the spot and ask you what mantra it is, Don't worry about that. That mantra is actually describing exactly what that critical angle of internal reflection is. Asavyastamro arunabhuta babhrasu mangalakha ye chemagum rudra abhito dikshu srita sahasrasho vai shagum hedai mahe. This mantra is critical angle of internal reflection. That radiance, effulgence, which is first blood red in color, then it is crimson red in color, then it is white in color, then it is completely colorless and is reflecting within me and thousands of objects around me. That's what the meaning of that mantra is. Now that mantra, when I first studied, I had no idea what is this mantra to do with. First of all, nothing to do with Shiva. Next of all, nothing to do with. It's talking about some common phenomenon that is happening with sun rays and sun aligning on the top of us. That's when Bhagavan told me in my dream that mantra is critical angle of internal reflection. I said, what are you talking about? If you look at effulgence with your tamoguna, with fear, God appears fearful. If you look at God as a creative force with your passionate attribute, then looks nice, beautiful, crimson red color. And if you look at that God with equipoised intellect, with equipoised nature, God is completely white in color, with all colors in the white color. When you are aligned with God completely 100%, and God is the effulgence is aligned right on top of you, completely integrating yourself with the God, that God is reflecting straight in you and in everything that is around you. See how 4 stages of evolution of the gunas, and each guna is a critical angle through which God's effulgence is passing through us. This is the beauty of these revelations. Nothing is said directly. You have to earn it. You have to yearn it. Y-E-A-R-N, not E-A-R-N. When you yearn for it, you will get it. This creative consciousness that we are talking about, again, the same 3 colors that I am talking about are the same 3 colors with which 3 feminine energies are described. And the 3 feminine energies are Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati. That which looks fearful in nature, Mahakali, completely black, with so much of dreadful eyes, blood red shot eyes, and with a tongue hanging around, looks so fearful. Why does mother have to look so fearful? Because by looking at her, all your fears are gone. Or you may be fearful too. Or you may be fearful too. But when that energy, that black color of the Mahakali absorbs all the attributes that are impurities that are within us, then when she is abstracting all those impurities from within us, from fearfulness we emerge into fearlessness. When you are fearless, you become creative. Until you are fearful, you can never be creative, because something is binding your mind. Yes? For us to be first of all creative, we have to be able to give up fear. If your mind is occupied with something, can it be engaged in creating something? It cannot, isn't it? Hello, are you all following? Am I losing you? Now what is this Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati? This Mahalakshmi that is being talked about is from fear you become fearless, then you become creative. That creative energy that is expressing through you is Mahalakshmi. That is wealth and that is auspiciousness. Hello? Creative fellow is the most wealthiest fellow, isn't it? A fearless fellow is the most happiest fellow. Because the fear that is created within us, where is that coming from? The fear is coming from some level of insecurity that is within us. We should never fear for anything. Uttisthata jagrata prapravara nibodhata. Awake, arise and stop not till the goal is reached. Awake, arise, awake. First you have to awake from slumber. You are sleeping, you are in slumber. This slumberness is that thinking that you are one of the many sheep that are around you. And that you have to fear, that you have to yearn, that you have to do this, you have to do that, and get caught up in the same cycle of everything. Once you stop from this slumber and say, no, I am that supreme consciousness that is ever creative, then what you awake, arise, and then you are arising. You are rising above the slumber and you won't stop until that goal is reached. And what is that goal? That goal is what is described as Sri. Sreyate sarvaha iti Sri. And what are the different aspects? Now once you understood this, the rest of the mantras obviously will be explaining themselves to you. If you didn't understand all of this stuff, then what you are chanting is very simply what is described there. Somebody told you, you chant this mantra, then you will get all kinds of wealth. Dhanam Agnir, Dhanam Vayur, Dhanam Suryo, Dhanam Vasu, Dhanam Indro, Bruhaspatir, Varunan Dhanam Ashnute. What is that dhana, that wealth that is described as? We are thinking that wealth is related to this dollar bills or those stocks or whatever it is that we are talking as. It is not that. Dhanam Agnir, Dhanam Vayuhu, Dhanam Suryo, Dhanam Vasuhu, Dhanam Indro, Bruhaspatir, Varunam Dhanam Ashnute. What is the actual Dhanam? The Dhanam is all the beautiful resources that God has provided to us in the form of so much of this creation, so much of this beautiful creation around us. That is the real wealth. Wealth is not anything else. Why? How can all the resources around us, how can that be wealth? How is that wealth? It is socialistic, it is given to everybody, therefore it doesn't just belong to me, then it cannot be my wealth. That is the thing that we are caught up with. What is it that we are caught up as? Wealth is something that I possess, that I can write in the will, that only my progeny can share. Nobody else should get it. I should be the one that is most prosperous. That is what we think of what wealth is. But the Vedic diction is saying wealth is that which is shared unconditionally, abundantly by everyone, and it doesn't belong to any single person. Right? And what is that wealth? Dhanam Agnihi, Dhanam Vayuhu. How does that relate to us? Dhanam Agnihi. Personally, how does Dhanam Agnihi means? Agni is the fire within us. Imagine that you don't have that fire kindling within you. You won't feel hungry. You can have all the auspicious wealth around you. Lots of fruits, vegetables, everything around you. All kinds of different sweets and everything. Supposing if you have a problem of indigestion and you are told you cannot eat, there is no fire kindling in you. Sorry, you cannot be eating all this stuff. Then is that wealth around you? It is not wealth anymore. It is burden around us. Now the mind is saying, Arey yaar, so much sweet is there. I am diabetic, I cannot eat. Then are you wealthy? You are the most poorest person. God has given everything to you, but has taken that ability to digest that food which is now turning poisonous for you. It is no longer auspicious for you. Dhanam Agnihi, that fire that is kindling within me, if that fire is maintained constantly, then what happened? Whatever I am consuming, that what is consumed is consumption for the sake of giving back. That is wealth for me. If I get food when I am really hungry and I can eat unconditionally whatever avakai, gongura, anything that is provided to me, very happily and enjoying the taste of it, that is real wealth. Imagine if you have a problem with tasting food. Some people have problem with even tasting food. In fact, all our taste receptors are completely destroyed by the food companies of the world. Only 2 receptors exist now. Sweet and fat. Nothing else. Sweet, salt, fat. These are the only 3 receptors for taste that exist on these human buds anymore. Everything is contaminated with too much sweetness. Everything's too much salt is added. Everything is absolutely fat. Undesirable fat. And now you go back and you do all the research, they are changing the whole thing. Then now they say ghee is actually good fat, butter is not good fat. Now they are going back to our own generation where people use only ghee as the fat. Now butter is not appropriate fat. Why? Because butter is artificial. Ghee is completely natural. And the ghee that is coming from what they call a Brahmi cow is even more auspicious. And there are certain ways to identify these. I don't want to get into that aspect of it. Why am I mentioning Dhanam Agnihi? Dhanam Agnihi. This Agni, the fire within us, that is wealth. That fire has to be maintained. Dhanam Vayuhu. And in order to maintain, Vayuhu is your life force. Your life force. Dhanam Vayuhu means this Vayuhu, this air that is within us. I shared this with you probably already several times. Bhagavan told me once, I asked Swami, what is the greatest miracle that you have ever done? How many of you heard that? The greatest miracle of God that Swami shared with me. The greatest miracle,
So Swami asked, take a balloon and then put 9 holes in it.
Yes. Take not 9 holes. Take a balloon full of air. Put a hole and let the air come out of it. Is it possible? Mister? No. Why it is not possible? What does that mean? Why is it not possible for the air to stay inside the balloon if you put a hole? Now imagine if you take a balloon full of air and you put 9 holes in it. Is it possible to have the air inside? No. And this is a balloon. You are a balloon. These balloons have 9 holes in it. Go count. And 9 holes, air is coming in, coming out. It can go out any time. When this air will go out of the body, you don't even have any control over it. But every time you are counting on that thing, thinking that you will live forever. That is Dhanam. To be able to have a healthy life force within us that is constantly maintained. Therefore Mansur Ali Khan says, Ali Mola, Ali Mola, Ali Dam, Dam. Dam means breath. With every breath of yours, you have to be thinking and thanking Ali. With every breath of yours, you are thinking, oh, thank you for letting me breathe one more time. Thanking me, thanking him, and thinking of him every time you experience this miracle of air going in, but not getting lost. It's only coming in, coming out, it is not getting lost. And it is happening 21,000 times every 24 hours. 21,000 times it is happening. Each of the 21,000 times in 24 hours, any time this air can say, okay, I'm not coming back in anymore. Then what happened? Then what happened? You lost that wealth of yours. The purpose for which this balloon is filled with air is to merge in that consciousness, Dhanam Vayuhu. dhanam suryo, dhanam vasuhu, dhanam indro, bruhaspatir, varunam dhanamashnute. This is the real meaning of Lakshmi. With every single aspect of when we are interacting with the creation, and be thankful to God, to say thank you for giving me air, thank you for giving me fire, thank you for giving me a place to live, thank you for giving me the sunlight, thank you for giving me the food, thank you. How many times we have to be thankful to God with every single thing that we are experiencing? Yes? You understand? This awareness of thankfulness is what is called Sri. Yes, Amma.
Since we are talking about Agni and Surya, I understand a little meaning what is Agni and Surya. And Swami has explained this part of the body he created with Surya, Vayu and everything. So in fact, he went to an extent in saying Surya is the one who is maintaining the temperature in us. In fact, he even mentioned that Surya is the one who also decides how long we live, lifespan also. So this was natural creation, Vayu, Agni, I'm a little bit out of the situation when Agni is introduced here. Is it a part of Surya? Because it teaches expression of Surya and Agni is almost same. So I'm a little bit disconnected here. Is it a part of Surya? Or again there is an Agni, which we are not seeing naturally. So Agni is usually created with the human form. So how are we matching this in our body?
Yeah. So Auntie's question is, the sun god is the one from which everything is happening. And that is the truth of the matter. Without the sun god, none of this other thing is happening. But this sun god effulgence is just like, the context of, at the highest level, this effulgence, what we refer to as sun, is expressed in three different ways. Ghrani, Surya, Aditya. Ghrani, Surya, Aditya. Those are the three fundamental divisions of this supreme effulgence. Ghrani is the core of the sun. Billions and billions of years, this core is giving up itself to give the light and the radiance to the whole world, to the whole cosmos. Now you can imagine, this is only one galaxy in which we are experiencing this sun. There are millions of galaxies, for each of which there is a sun. And for all those galaxies, they are revolving around one another center called the supreme effulgence. Hello, now you can imagine. If you imagine that this is one galaxy we are in which there is this 9 planetary system, and there is a referential sun, God or a sun axis around which all these planets are revolving. Like this, there are millions of suns, because there are millions of galaxies. For all of that galaxies, there should be some center through which everything in this entire cosmos is revolving. What is that? That is what's called Ghrani, Surya, Aditya. And now, in the context of each of these, there are different functions that are ascribed to this effulgence. And now that is divided into 12 different things. Mitra, Ravi, Surya, Bhanu, Khaga, Pusha, Hiranyagarbha, Maricha, Aditya, Savitra, Arka, Bhaskara. 12, they are called 12 Adityas. Now these 12 are the ones that are now describing even like same thing that we are talking about when we chant Surya Suktam. Surya Suktam describes all of this stuff. And you chant Ganesha Suktam. Ganesha Suktam also refers to the same thing. Now, Namaste Aditya Tvameva Prachaksham Karma Kartasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi, Tvameva Pratyaksham Vishnurasi, Tvameva Pratyaksham Rudrosi, Tvameva Pratyaksham Rugasi, Tvameva Pratyaksham Yajurasi, Tvameva Pratyaksham Samasi, Tvameva Pratyaksham Adharvasi, Tvameva Sarvam Chandosi, Adityad Vayurjayate, Adityad Bhumirjayate, Adityad Apo Jayante, Adityad Jyotirjayate, Adityad Deva Jayante, Adityad Veda Jayante, Adityova Eshayetan Mandalantapati, Asavadityo Brahma, Adityo Antahkarana Mano Buddhi Chitta Hankaraga, Adityo Vaivyanas Samano Dano Pana Pradaka, Adityo Vaishabda Sparsha Rupa Rasagandha, Adityo Vaivak Pani Padapa Yupastha. Now what is Aditya they are describing as? It's not the sun god they are describing, not the sun referential point of this galaxy. That Aditya they are describing is, what is the meaning of the word Aditya? What is the meaning of the word Aditya?
Well, when I was a child, I learned that it was the like the sun, I guess.
Like the sun?
Like no.
Which S-O-N or S-U-N?
S-U-N.
Okay. Okay.
That's the basic meaning that I learned.
But the basic meaning is very, very powerful. Ya means that. Aditi means indivisible. That which is indivisible is Aditya. How powerful that meaning is? You take a piece of cloth, you can divide it, isn't it? You take space, you can divide it into many rooms. You take water, you can divide it. You can even divide wind into Ghatakasha, Matakasha, all those different kinds of things. There is one thing that is indivisible. That which is indivisible is called Aditya. And that Aditya is nothing but supreme consciousness, which is the basis of everything, but it is not divisible. Now can you imagine what is indivisible has become divisible? Now this is all very complex equation, beyond the human mind to even comprehend. What is indivisible is, that's what this next, maybe after Sri Suktam I will teach you Surya Suktam. It is very, very powerful. Now when you talk about Ganesha, you are also Tvam Surya, Tvam Agni, Tvam Vayus, Tvam Surya, you are telling all that stuff. So you are telling Ganesha all these things, you are telling Surya all these things. Now you are saying Lakshmi is all these things, now Purusha is all these things, Rudra is all these things. What are you saying? That which you are calling as that indivisible supreme consciousness with which you need to have ultimately union with God, you are describing it so many different ways that whatever you do, ultimately you are listening to the same thing only. Everything is indivisible, all is one only. But yet we want to divide, play body politics, separate Satya Sai Baba from Shirdi Sai Baba, from this Baba, from that Baba. We are playing all this politics with ourselves. Why? We all know Shirdi Sai Baba and the Satya Sai Baba are one and the same. Why you put two pictures? Why you put two pictures? They are both the same, no? Right? Ultimately it is one and the same. How we are trying to... But the point of that is that no matter what you see as what is divisible, what is apparent, you want to ultimately come back and reinforcing yourself. It is the same, it is the same, it is the same. I am just calling by different points. It is the same. That is what is also Sri. To know that everything is ultimately the same and to experience it and to ground it, then what you have to do? You have to study mathematics, you have to study biology, you have to study physics, you have to study all these things, ultimately knowing that knowledge is ultimately the same. It is expressed in many different ways. How it helps us is, it makes us complete. It makes us complete. It is taking us to the higher level of consciousness. and awareness to say it doesn't matter how that looks like, it is the same as I. S-A-I. Same as I. S-A-I. Everything has to come to that point only. And what is that I? That I is not separate from everything else. So, Auntie brought up what is that Surya? That Surya, that is one referential point of that absolute energy. And that Surya is given so many different meanings. Mitra, Ravi, Surya, Bhanu, Khaga, Pusha, Hiranyagarbha, Maritya, Aditya, Savit, Arka, Bhaskarebhyo Namah. Now, all those 12 are descriptions of job to the same guy. Huh? Right? Job description of the same individual who at home, like I tell people, the guy that washes dishes at our home has a PhD degree in biochemistry. Huh? Right? Hello. Now, very rarely he does, but when he does a good job.
Yeah, that's why I just looked at it.
Huh? You can be a whatever PhD, whatever Nobel laureate or whatever. When you go home, there are dirty dishes. Your wife asks you to clean. You are a dirty man then, right? Isn't it? You are a washerman. You are this. But what happened to all these other things that you are a singer. You are a corporate vice president. You are a subordinate. You are a husband. You are brother. Huh? You are friend. Who is this? All these characteristics described to? Only one guy. Only one guy, isn't it? Similarly, all the things that we are referring to, when he is doing this job, giving light, is called Surya. When he is traveling across the space, he is called Khaga. When he is actually giving fire within you, he is called Vaishwara. When he is the fire in the wood, he is called Pavamana. When he is doing something else, same guy, referred to so many different ways, so many different job descriptions, so many. Ultimately, who is doing all this? Agnischa Majendrascha me, Somascha Majendrascha me, Savitacha Majendrascha me, Saraswati cha Majendrascha me, Pusha cha Majendrascha me, Bruhaspatischa Majendrascha me, Mitrascha Majendrascha me, Varunascha Majendrascha me, Tvashta cha Majendrascha me, Dhata cha Majendrascha me, Vishnuscha Majendrascha me, Ashvinau cha Majendrascha me, Marutascha Majendrascha me, Vishve cha me, Deva Indrascha me, Prudhivi cha Majendrascha me, Antarikshanja Majendrascha me, Dyauscha Majendrascha me, Dishascha Majendrascha me. What? Everything one common denominator called Indrascha me, Indrascha me, Indrascha me. The one who is doing action is called Indra. The one who is doing action in so many different ways, he is referred to as Agni and all those kind of things. And all these faculties that are expressed outside in the universe, every single individual is bestowed with all those faculties 100%. Each of us is a complete replica of the faculties that are completely you are observing outside. There is a Surya in you, there is a Aditya in you, there is a Grini in you, there is a Ganesha in you, there is all this complete whatever you are seeing outside, 100% replicated. That is the beauty of this creation. So incredible. 100%. Ano Raniyan Mahato Mahiyan. From the smallest of the atom, from Paramanu to Paramatma, everything is complete synchronous symmetry, no difference, no question. It has to be like that. Then you are saying, why is it that I am such an imperfect idiot? Hello. Isn't it? If everybody is created completely equal, how can there be all these kinds of different levels? Then all these different levels of Mahadbhyaha, Kshulakebhyaha, Ganebhyaha, Senabhyaha, Punjishtebhyaha, all these things that we are describing, so many different characteristics. Why are they existing? They have to exist because that's what makes the composition. If everybody is completely realized, who will be sitting and listening to this Veda class? Hello? If everybody is perfect, what is the reason for a doctor to exist in this universe? But every single individual is given that absolute power, completely replicated. That Shakti is present in every Vyakti. Shakti, Vyakti. Shakti is supreme power. Vyakti is individualized power. Individualized power, supreme power, completely present. But somehow we are stopping that from expressing from within ourselves. Why does that happen? Because we have gotten carried away by all the different impurities of the instincts and the impulses and the actions that we have created for ourselves. This is nothing to do with God. Okay? This is nothing to do with God. Why I am like this? If you go back and peel layer after layer after layer of all your instincts, you will completely understand why Shekhar is like this, why Sridhar is like this, why somebody is like this, why X is like this, why is like this. But when you actually come back and peel and look at that perfect substance that is present, that is what is called happiness, which is union with God. And that God is the generative, organizational, dissolutional power that is existing within each individual. And how is that particular auspiciousness? If you characterize it, how does it look? I think we are done with the... I gave introduction for 1 hour. What is going to happen? So, you got that Sri Suktam is now what is elaborating on the characteristics of that Supreme Consciousness, referred to in so many different ways. And that is in, as I said, Atreya Mandala of Rigveda, and compilation of different mantras from the Vedas that elaborate on that supreme auspiciousness, what's called Sri. And this Sri is nothing but that energy which is referred to in a feminine form, because the feminine energy is the energy that is the creative energy, that is the kinetic energy. The potential energy is the energy that is latent. Kinetic energy is what is patent. So when something has to express itself, that expression, that creativity automatically gets a feminine gender, and hence it is referred to as Sri, is referred to as a feminine gender in the context of that consciousness. Yes, Guru?
So is this the chanting of these suktams, is it to be done in any specific order, or it could be chanted in any order?
When you go from PhD degree, do you need an MS degree first or not? Or you go straight to PhD?
Because there are so many suktams, that's why I wanted to know whether it has to be recited in any particular, or chanted in any particular order.
When you say, what do you mean by the different mantras?
No, there are Veda Suktam, Sri Suktam.
Oh, like that? No, nothing like that. Even if you don't chant also, it is okay. The beauty of Sanatana Dharma is it is not prescriptive. The prescription came from people so that there is a common way of doing things. When you are individual, you can do whatever you want. When you are relative, you have to behave in certain way. That's called dharma. That's why you have speed limits and all those things. Can I drive only in particular speed limit or not? You ask the question to a policeman, he will answer it. Right? So, when you do it together, you have to follow certain dharma. And that is why the ritual comes into picture. Otherwise it's chaotic, no? Everybody can do whatever they want, then life becomes chaotic. So the individual reality, when it is expressed as relative reality, in the relative reality then there are certain boundaries, certain ways of doing things. But even that is not prescribed. You get together with some guys, call yourselves Christian, you have certain way of doing things. You get together with some other guys called Muslims, you have certain way of doing things. But Christians can't be going to a mosque and then chanting their stuff, no? They'll be kicked out. So in your relative reality, you have to follow certain dharma. That's all it means. But ultimately, there is nothing, whether you call Allah, Mullah, whatever you want to call, It's the same thing only. No difference. So Sri Suktam, 15 mantras. Suktam Panchadasarchancha Sri Kamas Satatan Japet. 15 mantras in this particular Suktam. And the 15 mantras are actually take the mind from lowest level to the highest level and ultimately purifies the mind and the consciousness. Yash Shuchih Prayato Bhutva Juhuyadajyamanvaham Sriyah Panchadasarchancha Sri Kamas Satatan Japet. How this particular mantras purify the mind? What are the attributes of that consciousness that purifies our mind? That is what Sri Suktam is describing, and we will start the actual Sri Suktam next week. Let's start with Om and 3 Shantis. Om Shanti 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 Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti